In this section, we are going to work on the sixth phase of your dissociation process, which is the possibilities phase. This is the moment where you ask yourself, and therefore get answers, about what you gain by distancing yourself from what causes the pain you experience. If you are no longer in that relationship, there are surely things that you gained or recovered that you had lost by having been in the relationship for many years. Therefore, the first question that arises associated with this part of this treatment is what you did before entering into that relationship that you stopped doing because that person didn't like you doing it. And for this reason, I want you to first think about your time. How your time was altered once you entered into that relationship that you are now dissociating from. I am sure that before entering the relationship, your time belonged only to you. You could choose when to do whatever you wanted. But what happened to the relationship? Could you say that it was you who controlled your time? Or was it perhaps that person from whom you are now dissociating who began to control your schedules? If you could give me a number from 1 to 10, being 1, I completely controlled my time, being 10, my ex-partner controlled me completely, what number would you assign to the way you managed your time when you were in that relationship? If I ask you this question, it is precisely to ask you the following one. Given that you have already established that in some way your partner managed your time back then, how much of your time do you manage today that you are no longer in that relationship, that you are here dissociating? Therefore, what is better for you? Living with the framework of a relationship where others control your time, or having recovered your time and therefore your life, which is what you have gained thanks to the fact that you are no longer in this relationship. Therefore, just by managing your time, you have already taken a new step so that you can see why you are better off without that relationship than in it. Which is the purpose of what we are doing here. And for the same reason, if now you are the one who controls your time, can you see the infinite possibilities that open up to you thanks to this? Let's move on to the next stage of this process of possibilities. What happens to your peace of mind? Did you feel calm when you were in the relationship? Or were you living in a permanent state of uncertainty and fear? In most of the cases in which I work, this is one of the elements that is most repeated. My clients reach a point where they feel constantly threatened by their partner, who, in addition to controlling their time, begins to control their emotions, either because of what the partner tells them or because they have to behave perfectly at all times. And for that reason, let's do the same exercise that we have been doing up to this point. From 1 to 10, what was your state of tranquility in your failed relationship? Being 1, I did not feel calm at all. Being 10, I was completely calm, in a zen state, we could call it. If thanks to this numbering exercise, you realized that you were not living in a state of tranquility, the question that arises is why you want to return to a relationship in which you do not feel calm, in which your emotions are completely altered. And based on that, I want you to define the following. From 1 to 10, what is the state of tranquility that you have now thanks to the fact that you are not in the relationship? And once you have established that you now feel much calmer than you did when you were in the relationship, the question arises, how do you feel better? Being in the relationship or out of it? From there, what I want you to think about is what possibilities you gain thanks to the peace of mind you have gained. The most obvious is that you can think about things more rationally and, above all, enjoy life without fear that someone may abandon you. Now, what happens with your verbal or behavioral expressions? How much do you think they changed because of your failed relationship? I am sure that even before you entered the relationship, you had a way of being. You had a certain ways of communicating with others which were lost because of that person who forced you to have a specific mode of behavior. For example, there are people who liked to sing, but their partner doesn't like it. Others like to be very playful, but when they enter into relationships, that is blocked in case the person you are with is very controlling. What occurred with you? Do you feel like something similar happened to you? And therefore, I want you to think about some verbal expressions, words, jokes, opinions that you had to block because of that failed relationship. And once you have established that, the next thing I want you to think about is what physical expressions, that is, movements that made you feel good, you had to stop doing so as not to upset that person who was your partner at the time. You already know that you can do the numbering exercise to further rationalize this. But beyond all that, I want you to ask yourself the following. How do you feel better? With a person who limits your verbal expressions, your opinions, and your movements, or being alone and enjoying everything you like to say, think, and do? Therefore, I ask you the question again. Why would you want to return to a relationship where you lose so much freedom? And with that, I want you to think about the following. What possibilities are open to you if you express what you feel and if you enjoy your own opinions, which is what I want you to observe here? That you project into the future the type of life you want to have and that you lost because of that relationship. What happens in the case of the people you hang out with? Being in that relationship, you gained or lost that possibility. I am sure that even before the relationship, you could hang out with certain types of people that you liked. But if your partner was very controlling, it is very likely that he or she also began to influence that aspect of your life very strongly. If you could give me a number from 1 to 10, being 10, I could hang out with whoever I wanted, and being 1, I found my ability to relate to whoever I wanted completely limited, where would you be? There are people who, out of jealousy or dependency, limit their partner's ability to interact with other people. And usually, one avoids people with whom one enjoys, so as not to come into conflict with one's current partner. Do you think this happened to you? And what happens to people you didn't want to associate with? Sometimes it happens in a relationship that you are forced to talk to people you don't like simply to avoid conflict with your current partner. You know, the father or mother or uncle or friend you don't like. But now that the relationship is over, do you feel that you are better or worse in this specific context that we are talking about here? What is better for you? Having the freedom to interact with whoever you want or limiting yourself to only the people your partner likes? Therefore, thanks to this, you can see more possibilities that arise for your life to improve just by not being with that person from whom you are dissociating here. What happens with your activities? When you were in that relationship, what number would you put on the freedom to do the activities that you liked? Because it is very possible that that was also lost when entering the relationship. Being 1, I completely stopped doing what I liked. Being 10, I continued doing everything that was important, valuable, and fun to me. If you are honest, you will realize that as your time suffered, your favorite activities were also postponed. Therefore, now that the relationship no longer exists, you can see that you can effectively recover everything that was lost at the time. Therefore, what is best for you? Living with a person who limits you from doing what you want, or having spaces to have fun and enjoy what you like most? It seems to me that the answer is clear. Therefore, you can now observe all the opportunities that are open to you in the future, but also in your present right now, so that you can begin to build the type of life that you have always wanted for yourself and that was suspended because of that failed relationship from which we are dissociating you here. In the next section, we are going to work on the topic of self-awareness, which is the next stage of your dissociation process. I see you there.